Hello and welcome to Carved in Stone. I'm your host, Shawn Chabam, and today I'll be giving you my Mount Rushmore of forgotten Saved by the Bell storylines. I know that's a mouthful and very specific. Basically, I'll be going over characters and or moments that seemed like they were going to be a big part of the show that were dropped without explanation. If you were a child of the 90s, this episode is for you. Sitcoms, particularly from yesteryear, are hilarious with how they pull us into their world for a half hour a week, and then everything tends to just reset the following week. And it's like episode 5 never happened once episode 6 is being written. I feel like most sitcoms did that back in the day, but I think Saved by the Bell really took it to the next level by giving us gigantic plot points and seemingly pivotal characters, only for them to never be heard of again, and that's what I'm going to be going over today. First up, how did they never come back to this story or give us any kind of closure to it? Zach's relationship with Lisa. In the show's final season, Lisa and Zach discover a hidden chemistry between them while working together on a fashion show to help Lisa get into college. Zach forgets momentarily that his best friend Screech, who has gone to the ends of the earth for Zach, has been in love with Lisa for years. Zach scream apologizes at Screech, refusing to fight when Screech challenges him. Zach, of course, never told Screech what was happening, and instead Screech found out by walking in on Zach and Lisa kissing. You know, if this were just some passing crush that Screech had on Lisa, I could forgive Zach's character here. But even though Screech never stood a chance, Screech genuinely cared for Lisa, and this had been going on since the show's inception. It wasn't a case of puppy love. What bothered me more was that here we have what appears to be a major development in the storyline, and the next episode, we're just supposed to forget it ever happened. They never mention it again. There's no blow off of the relationship where we find out they realized they're better off as friends. It just stops. It is completely ignored from there. I looked at IMDb to see what the following episodes were. The one right after this is the teen line, where Zach dates Melissa, the girl in a wheelchair, and then she's never heard from again. And the one after that, and this is great, is Masquerade Ball, where a mix-up in love letters makes Lisa believe she is becoming a couple with, get this, Zach. Like they weren't just dating 2 weeks ago. Such a weird story to have these two dating and then never acknowledge it again. They go over things like this on Zach Morris is Trash, which is hilarious. Give that a watch if you were a fan of Saved by the Bell growing up. It does a masterful job at combining wit with excellent points about what a narcissistic tool Zach Morris was, and reminds you that as you look back on the show as an adult, it was cringy as hell. Even Mark Paul Gosselaar, who played Zach Morris, has given props to Zach Morris's Trash. For the next reveal, whatever happened to Jesse's stepbrother, Eric? He's in a two-parter, and we're led to believe he's going to become part of the gang, only to never be seen or mentioned again after part 2. So Jesse's father marries a younger woman, Leslie. Even though he's never shown during the other two-parter where the couple weds, he appears to live in Jesse's house after the wedding. He completely disrupts the lives of those around him. Nobody except Kelly wants to give the kid a chance, which is mainly his own fault as he's as big a jerk as Zach, but they keep him around. Eventually, Lisa agrees to go out with him because Zach bribes her with MC Hammer tickets. Lisa and Eric actually hit it off. A series of events leads to Zach and Slater having Mr. Belding's car, and they want to photograph Eric driving it, only Lisa ends up driving it and crashing the thing when she's temporarily blinded by the camera flash. Zach tells Eric about the bribe. He confronts Lisa, who's upset because she ended up genuinely liking Eric. Yada yada yada, things go down. Eric is going to go back to New York, but the gang convinces him to stay at Bayside, only for us to never see or hear of Eric again. My biggest issue with how they left this isn't that we stop seeing Eric, it's that they specifically convince him to stay. I assume the writers knew they weren't bringing him back after part two, so why not have him go back to New York, but the gang leaves an open invitation to Eric to come back to California? Like, say, well, we'll miss you, Eric, but we hope you come back to Bayside for visits every now and then. Then Eric agrees, and we never see him again. I could live with that, but not the implication that he's now a Saved by the Bell mainstay who just vanishes into thin air. And we'll keep it in the family for the next reveal. Another sibling who appeared to just vanish, Slater's younger sister, JB. Where'd she go? And where'd she come from? I don't remember Slater ever mentioning a sibling until she showed up on this episode. Anyway, Slater understandably doesn't want his younger sister dating womanizer Zach Morris. Zach naturally never asked how it would make Slater feel because Zach Morris is trash. And he is shocked to learn Slater has an issue with it. Zach assures Slater that JB isn't like other girls, and she's here to stay, only after Slater accepts the fact that JB has to make her own decisions, she then disappears and she's never seen again. She's never mentioned again. And if I recall correctly, like I said a moment ago, she was never mentioned before this episode either. The things that pop into sitcom writers' heads and then are just never acknowledged again are freaking hysterical. The honorable mentions today. Max, the owner of the kids' hangout, The Max, was a recurring character performing bad magic tricks who one day never showed up again. Zach had several romantic partners for one episode who then went away without explanation, like JB. Another is Christy, the female wrestler who embarrasses Zach by fighting off an attacker, so Zach doesn't get his arm broken. I could go on all day with honorable mentions, but I'll only list a few more to save time. I touched on Melissa briefly a few minutes ago, the girl in the wheelchair. Violet, Screech's girlfriend, kind of showed up off and on when they felt like it, but he was still enthralled with Lisa throughout the show's run. There are also several initiatives the gang has that are never mentioned after one episode, like the teen line, which is how he met Melissa, and running the school store. Another hilarious change that makes sense was why in junior high they were in Indiana and high school is in California, even though it's the same school and many of the same characters. The real reason is simply because they retooled the show after season 1. It was originally Good Morning Miss Bliss. The high school episodes that become Saved by the Bell are considered a different show, but they put the Saved by the Bell theme song on the Good Morning Miss Bliss episodes in syndication. So that's explained, although not within the context of the actual show, which I don't think they could do and have it make sense. Not that logic was ever this show's strong point. I just wanted to mention it because I think it's funny. Now let's round out this week's mountain, shall we? It's one thing to introduce a character for one episode and then cut him or her out of the show. It's quite another for someone to be a major character for parts of an entire season just to go poof. That was the case with Tori. I know real life got in the way, okay? I am well aware. But that doesn't make it any less weird that she was part of the gang for a season just to be gone with no explanation at graduation. It was equally weird that Kelly and Jesse disappeared without explanation prior to that, and would then show up randomly, but at least they came back to wrap up the series. It felt like there was closure there that we didn't get with Tori. Like I said, real life got in the way, Tiffany Amber Thiessen and Elizabeth Berkley, who played Kelly and Jesse respectively, decided to pursue other opportunities. They already had episodes filmed. To make up for their absence, Tori came in as a new character and eventual love interest for Zach. The episodes with Kelly and Jesse are interspersed with episodes including Tori. We never see Tori with Kelly or Jesse. There's no continuity whatsoever. This is sometimes referred to as the Tori paradox. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by Saved by the Bell, IMDb, NBC, Zach Morris's Trash, Funny or Die, any of the actors or actresses mentioned, or any of their properties. Images are sourced from Wikimedia Commons under appropriate licensing. I hope I made this episode of Carved in Stone slightly less cringy than an episode of Saved by the Bell. To review my Mount Rushmore of forgotten Saved by the Bell storylines: the Tori paradox, Slater's sister JB, Jesse's stepbrother Eric, and Zach's relationship with Lisa. I hope you enjoyed. This was one of my trips down memory lane. I will see you next time. Go Birds!